And welcome to this webinar on water conservation and management, the Israeli model, that is organized through the Embassy of Israel in the Philippines and through Mashav and Minda in partnership. So I'd like to, we have with us over 80 participants from the Mindanao region, and some of you are very busy people as well, and so we're not going to waste a lot of time on futile talk. I would like to invite Ambassador Ilan Flus, Israel's ambassador to the Philippines, Israel's new ambassador to the Philippines, to open this webinar officially. Ambassador Flus, the floor is yours. אתה במute, אילן.
Sorry about it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tammy. Just to be more accurate, the designated ambassador, and not yet presented my credentials, and I'm looking forward to arriving to the Philippines as early as possible, and today, and thank you for honoring us. The teams of Minda, MATC, the Israeli Embassy in Manila, and finally, dear participants of this important seminar on water conservation and management. It is my pleasure to open this seminar today. It is the first event I'm participating as the incoming ambassador of Israel to the Philippines, and it is a great honor for me to be with you today. I believe that cooperation on issues of development, and especially sustainable development, is the most important cooperation these days. The reason is climate change, which is, I think, the most important challenge for governments and at large today. We have to make sure that we provide services, standard of living, such as food, water, healthcare, education, etc., etc. We have to make sure that these services are provided also to future generations. And we're seeing already today challenges specifically in the water sector. So we have to continue development, but it will be done in a more sustainable way. Water is a critical resource we need for all sectors. If it is consumption, drinking water, and obviously for agriculture, industries, etc. So why is Israel having this seminar today with the Philippines? Obviously, Israel is situated in one of the driest regions in the world. Half of the land of Israel is actually a desert. It is and was the most critical challenges of Israel since it was established and before. Israel had to develop, out of necessity, efficient water management policies, technologies, and practices for the water sector. It was a necessity for the survival of Israel. This is why today the Israeli water management are so advanced and recognized so around the world. Since 2005, due to the growing population and less rainfall, we have realized we have to cut the consumption of the natural water resources we had, and we had to shift to new sources of water, and specifically to water desalination. Actually, today, 50% of the water, drinking water in Israel, 50% of water in Israel, which is used in Israel annually, comes from desalination and from treated water. 2/3 of drinking water in Israel is desalinated. 86% of water in the agricultural sector is treated water, water which is reused. So it's about national policies, it is about best practices, it is about management, and obviously leading countries whose best practices in water management is emulated around the world. We have local and international research and development centers in Israel, which are focusing on water and agricultural technology. And out of Israel, we share those technologies around the world. This is why I'm so grateful to join you this evening, this afternoon in Israel, and take part in welcoming the Filipino decision makers from the Mindanao Development Authority and other local government officials. For the next 5 weeks, Israel Agency for International Development Cooperation, or MASHAV, through MATC, will conduct a seminar focusing on water conservation and water management based on the experience of Israel. We are sharing our experiences. Obviously, they have to be adjusted to the very different climates in the Philippines. I hope this webinar would not be the last webinar, but it should be a beginning of a future fruitful collaboration with MINDA and with the other local government units and other organizations in Mindanao and in the Philippines. We assure you that the State of Israel, we are committed to sharing our knowledge and technology and expertise, not just in water management, but also in general in many other sectors. MASHAV has been operating in the Philippines for many, many years, and we will continue this cooperation. I do believe that this cooperation has to be led by governments, but we have also to include later the technological aspect, which has to become also through the private sector. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity again and to thank Secretary Manny Piñol for you actually paved the way for the realization of this cooperation. So I want to thank you very much. I want to thank also Mashav and Sinatko, Oded, Tami, Evelyn, all the other friends, and the different Israeli experts who would be participating in building this relationship, which is important on the aspect of development, but it is obviously also very important for the very good historical diplomatic relations between Israel and the Philippines. These relations are dear to us, important for us, and we'll continue building this relationship for many years to come. Thank you very much. Mabuhay.
Okay, thank you very much, Designated Ambassador Ilan Flus. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite to give some words of greeting and to also open this webinar with us, our partner, the chairperson of MINDA, Secretary Emmanuel Piñol. Please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Tami. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador, and welcome to the Philippines, Ambassador Ilan Flus. Of course, we'd like to thank our friend from the Israel Embassy in Manila, DCM Nir Balsam, our friends with Mashav. My dear friends, it would seem ironic that a country with so many rivers, with so much rainfall, having typhoons every year that flood our plains, would try to learn lessons in water management and conservation from a nation which has only about 2.1 million hectares, very shallow rainfall pattern, and a few rivers. But the truth is, I believe that we Filipinos have ignored one of God's blessings that we enjoy, which is water. We have allowed our water during the rainy season to just run off to the ocean. And during the pronounced 3 or 4 months of dry season, our farmers complain that they don't have water for irrigation. Our problem is very simple. How do we manage the water during the rainy season so that during the dry season, we would have enough water for our agriculture? And we have to admit that Israel in this area is well advanced of the Philippines, way, way advanced. That's why I suggested to Ambassador Rafael Harpas, my friend, before he left for a new assignment, and our friends from Mashab, would it be possible for Israel to share with us the secret to your outstanding water management programs that allows you to have water for agriculture, allows you to export your agricultural products? so that we in the Philippines would learn about this and also improve our agriculture. And so, on behalf of the Filipino people and the people in the island of Mindanao, and the governors who are here with us tonight, who will be joining us for the next rather 5 sessions, and the other decision makers in Mindanao, we would like to thank you for your generosity in sharing with us your secrets and in emphasizing that water is life. Thank you, Israel, from the Filipino people.
Thank you so much, Secretary Piñol. And now I'd like to invite our special envoy for international water affairs, Yoram Morad, to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Tami. Secretary Piñol, Ambassador Flas, dear friends, hello and good afternoon from Jerusalem. My name is Yoram Morad. I am a Mashav Special Envoy for International Water Affairs. Usually, we invite our students to Israel to learn with us here. But under the times we live in, we are very happy to at least have the ability to host you online for this very special webinar on water conservation and management, the Israeli model, tailor-made especially for you, professionals from the Philippines. This online training program intends to share with you, dear participants, a bit of Israel's experience related to the subject. Water is not only critical for human survival, it is at the core of sustainable development, the building block of socio-economical growth, and it is crucial for creating healthy ecosystems for all life on Earth. Lack of access to safe, sufficient, and affordable water, sanitation and hygiene facilities has a devastating effect on the health, dignity, and prosperity of billions of people around the world. This webinar, held in the framework of the cooperation between Mashav and Minda, aims to share with its participants Israel's experience and holistic approach to water policy and integrated management, water reuse and irrigation efficiency for the development of the rural and agricultural sector. We do hope that it will also create a framework for online debate, enabling you to evaluate possible adaptations of new strategies and technologies to your own local conditions. I am sure, knowing Chezi, Tami, Oded, and the rest of the MATC team, that this goal will be achieved. Also because we have managed, actually Tami has managed, to find Chezi and to find excellent lecturers that are among the best that we have in Israel. I hope you will find the training program interesting and supportive to your life and work. We look forward to hear after the program your comments and impressions. We do hope that the day will come and you will soon be able to visit our real land of milk and honey. It will be wonderful to see and meet you in one of our future courses. Good luck to all and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you so much, Yoram Morad. And now I would like to invite, for just a few words, the director of the MATC Center, the Mashav's Agricultural Training Center, Oded Chalamit. Oded, the microphone is yours.
Yes, but I have to open it first. Good afternoon to everybody, and I would like to thank very much Yoram and especially Tami that was the initiator after Minister Piñol of all this activity. In order to be practical in this activity, and we are speaking about the highest level of ideas and decision maker, and to make something like some water operation make true. You should have money, you should have a whole project, and it takes time, etc. What is the most important thing for you to take out of those few meetings is to take one idea and to say, this is relevant for me, and this is what I would like to apply this month. Then there is a lot of water in your river, and the thing won't be won't be operational and you will forget. The most important thing is to pick one thing that you think it's important for you and try to apply it on the first month. You are choosing the things that are important for you. And in this way, these sessions of meeting will be very fruitful. And I hope you a lot of success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oded. Now we would like to show a very short movie about Mashav and Mashav's activities.
Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, was launched 60 years ago to share the know-how and technologies which provided the basis for Israel's own rapid development. Mashav aims to empower those living in poverty in a holistic and innovative way and support fellow nations and communities in their struggle to achieve sustainable development, placing people at the heart of its initiatives. Our agricultural programs use unique techniques and farming methods to increase sustainability, food security, and hunger eradication. We believe that investment in education is an investment in our future and an agent for change around the world. We coordinate Israel's official humanitarian assistance, building medical facilities and supporting earthquakes, floods, famine, and other disasters. Mashav promotes innovative entrepreneurship as a means of advancing growth and prosperity. We believe that gender equality and women's empowerment are central to reach sustainable development. Our philosophy is to leave no one behind. During 6 decades, Mashav has trained over 300,000 people from more than 140 countries and has established development projects worldwide. Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, is celebrating 60 years of sharing its experience and partnering for a better world.
Okay, so with that opening, and just right before I introduce you to today's lecturers, I would like to just point out some of the other people who are here with us today. From the MATC staff, we have with us Evelyn Rosenthal, who is the Deputy Director of the Center. And we have also Eran Geva, who is our technical assistant here, but I do not see him, but there he is. Eran is here with us as well. We have also, I saw that we have Nir Balzam, the Deputy Ambassador. Nir, are you here with us? Well, I saw him earlier. I hope he is still here with us. And we have several experts. First and foremost, we have with us our professional consultant, Mr. Chezi Bilik, who has actually worked very, very hard to build the program that you are going to be enjoying during this webinar. So hello, Chezi, and thank you for being with us.
Hi,
and thank
everybody.
you. And thank you for being our consultant. And we have also with us Omer Vardi, who is one of today's lecturers. We have Uri Shor from the Water Authority, and we have Talia David from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is the coordinator of this webinar. Hi, Talia. And I'm hoping that I'm not missing anyone. And now I will introduce you to today's lecture. The first lecture, because also Omer Vardi is also. So our first lecturer is Dr. Amir Givati, the Chief Scientific Officer of Asgard Systems, and he will be talking to us about the climate crisis in the world, in Southeast Asia and in the Philippines. Amir, I am passing the microphone to you, and good luck.
Thank you, Tammy. So let me just upload the presentation. Yeah. Can you see it now?
We see it. Yes, we see it.
Great. Yeah, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Amir. and I'm the former head of surface water department of the Israeli Water Authority. Until recently, there are some colleagues here from the Water Authority that will talk after me. Today, I'm dealing with a solution and all kind of applying technique for better preparing and coping better with the climate crisis, actually flood and drought. And today, in a few minutes, I just want to show you a few practical example of, let's call it solution or tools to take better decision. Because as the ambassador said, and put it nicely, I mean, Philippines has a lot of water. At the end of the day, there are a lot of consumptions, and you need to allocate the water to all sector, to agriculture, to energy. We didn't mention also renewable energy that they also use water. So the idea is to better monitor and better collect data in order to take better decisions. So I will talk about the climate change observation and future projection, but not too much, because I believe everyone in the world actually is aware about global warming and climate change, and the recent report by the UN, the IPCC, that showed that the global is warming in more than 1 degree, and blame also humanity, show the projection for the coming future, how the global is going to be warmer and water with all those consequences. So I just want to ask the question, so how can we be better prepared for climate change effect? And again, the ambassador mentioned climate change is top priority for a lot of countries. Also here in Israel now we are facing more and more climate crises, flood, drought, and in those days, huge forest fire. So we know that we need to be better prepared for climate change. How do we do it? We adopt new technologies. First of all, we monitor better our data, our environment, water, and atmosphere by collecting data, and then we can take better decisions. And I will show you today a case study from the city of Tel Aviv of like dashboard that shows for the decision makers in the cities what is the situation in real time and in future time regarding the water situation in the city. Not drinking water and not allocation for agriculture, but runoff and flood water that affect the city. So the target here really shortly is to be really precise, because we are all, some of us professional and some of us decision making, is less to take about the theory about climate change, because as I said, I believe that all of us is aware, and here you can see that today it's already a consensus. It was until 10 years ago more an issue of scientists. Now it's an issue of the decision making. And in the coming November, there will be the biggest meeting globally, that all the global leaders will attend in Glasgow in order to take decision. This is a time for decision and not also only for statement. And coping with climate change require action in two aspects. One is mitigation, and this is what I said about Glasgow. Mitigation is mostly in the field of government. Not only, also on municipal level, but mostly government, because when we're talking about mitigation to climate change, we need to take action to reduce greenhouse gases, the emissions. This is something that government need to do. We need to change our economy. I mentioned renewable energy, so moving from coal to renewable energy. I know that in the Philippines, we use a lot of hydropower from waterfalls. So river and water is not only for drinking and agriculture, it's also for energy, and energy is going to be more and more important. Second, and maybe not less important or even more urgent, is adaptation. So adaptation is in the governmental field, but not only, also regulators, cities, municipal levels, and also the private sector. Adaptation means, what do we do today in order to cope with cyclones that you mentioned? Even though I know that Mindao is a bit south from the cyclone track, the cyclone goes a bit north from latitude 7, but we have dry period, we have wetter than average period, so we need to take action in order to be ready. Just one slide about the trend, what we see already globally. And again, there is a big difference, as the former speaker mentioned, between Israeli climate and hydrology condition to Southeast Asia and Philippines specifically, but still, you and us, we face quite same trends like high temperature, record temperature, as we saw in the US, in North America, and Europe. We call it drought. I'm not sure that we can call it drought in the Philippines, but there are dry periods, or there are dry seasons that are drier than average, so we need to be ready for that. Now, on the other side of the coin is the dry period, is the wet period, the flood. We see extreme flood event. If we know a little bit more about those flood and drought period, we will be able to collect the water, to harvest the water, maybe to build reservoir that will collect the water during flood and then release it to agriculture during the dry season. In addition to this climate factor, and we see it really intensively in Israel, but you see it also in the Philippines, in Manila, we have those mega cities with all the problem of drinking water, water quality, water quantity, drainage problems. So I will show an example from Tel Aviv. So Tel Aviv is not as big as Manila, but still it's a growing cities. And population growth, both in Israel, in Manila, Asia, and especially the demand for water, I would say water, energy, clean energy, and food. So this is just the outcome. At the end, we want to talk about the water sector. Climate change is the main issue, but we want to talk about the water sector. There are three main points that are related or combined between climate and water. So what are the main effect of climate change on the water sector? Definitely in Israel, but not only, also in your region. You see, I specifically talk here about the Mediterranean, but also in the tropical area. So we see either a decrease in our case, or in your case, change, not all the time decrease, in the water volume, the amount of water you can consume for agriculture. It can be changed in the water quantity, as we see here, but also in water quality. Water can be more saline, more polluted, and climate change also affects that. So this is one key point, change in water volume. We see a lot of extreme inter-annual variability inside the season and between season to season. We have one monsoon season can be wetter than average, the other one can be drier than average. And decision makers, they would prefer to, and also engineer, they would prefer to look on an average, because this is much more concrete and certain. In our region, Mediterranean, this is not the case. We can have like 5 dry years and then 2 wet years. In the tropic, it's more like close to the average, but still climate change is changing it. And last but not least, climate extreme. As I said, the two sides of the same. You can have dry periods, and all of a sudden you can have extreme dry flood events. And as water manager, we need to cope. We need to be ready for both trends, to have enough water for all sector, all consumption for the dry season, and also to be prepared for the floods. And again, we are not in the stage of the Philippines. Flood here can be tough, but not as what you have, especially in northern part of the Philippines. So we're not going to go to the theoretical information. We also, the last IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change report, that showed the increase of the temperature, 1% already, and the scenario for the future until the end of the century. All over the world, we're going to see global warming. So this is obvious. Maybe what is more important for the water sector is the effect of global warming on the hydrological cycle. Hydrological cycle is everything related to climate. It's evaporation, it's runoff on the ground, it's infiltration to groundwater. So this is why I call it, as you see on the left, the two sides of the same coin. Climate change can lead to more drought and dry period, or to more extreme wet season. So we need to be aware, not to talk only about climate, but to understand in the Philippines, in your region, the consequence and the effect of climate change on the water cycle, on the everything, what it will do to evaporation, evapotranspiration, which is the evaporation from the crops, infiltration, what will be your the condition of your surface water reservoir, the underground water, all of that. The problem is that it's nice to say it, but if we look globally, mostly in part of the world, like in South Africa, in South America, I will show example from India, but also from region in Southeast Asia, most of the population are blind to those climate and weather data. I mentioned the slide before, the evaporation, evapotranspiration, how much water I need to my field to irrigate it. So not everywhere in the world is those data are available. And in order to take action, to be more efficient, we need first of all to monitor and to collect those data and use technologies that are available in Israel. Either if it's from remote sensing, from satellites, and it used to be very high cost, but now it's really cheap. You can monitor and detect the greenness of the vegetation, the soil moisture, and you can do like forecast for the coming from hours to days and even to season, and then you can manage your field, even the field level, much better. So let's see just a few examples from Israel. What we do in Israel, I mentioned Tel Aviv. I will show you also an example from India. So if we go from top down, in Israel, first of all, the water sector, I mentioned that I was responsible for surface water and for all the hydrometeorological data in the country. First of all, we need to come to the decision making and tell them what is the current situation of the, let's call it for the drought. So I call it the drought index in Israel. Again, in the Philippines, it's not the situation. You have quite a lot of water. You just need to use it differently. So again, without getting into detail, first of all, you see the fluctuation. In the Mediterranean, we have, it's like crazy hydrological situation. You have one dry year and the next year is very wet. And again, we need to plan for 30 years. It's really difficult. But if we ignore those fluctuations, at the end of the day, we have a decreasing trend of drought. So we have more and more dry season, dry year in respect to wet years. So the water commissioner here in Israel, when he needs to take decision, he needs to look at graph figures like that and understand that he's going to have less and less water. The meaning of that, we need to be more efficient, or we need to produce other source of water, either from desalination or from water treatment. And the next speaker will talk about how Israel is best in the world on recycled water or maybe efficient use of water. So my colleague Uwe will tell you how you can use the same amount of water, but in much more efficient way. Education and all of that. So this is the case of Israel. But what is much more relevant for the Philippines is less the total amount of water, because again, you have quite a lot of water. You need to look on maps like that. So again, this is our region. This is Israel and the surrounding country. And what you see here is a projection for the future of the dry periods. So I define dry periods. It's like 5 days without precipitation. I'm not talking now about a full season or dry season, but just, you know, in the rainy season, as you have in your area, if you have like a week without precipitation, I want to know in the future how it's going to change. So what you see here with the color, that we are expecting like 20% increase in the number of the dry periods, which is really significant, because even if we're going to have the same amount of rain in Israel, for agriculture, they will see more and more dry periods. So they need to irrigate more. So this is one projection from our study in Israel. And again, without getting into too much detail, the red color represents dry period, increase in dry period. On the right is the near future. On the left is the near future until the coming to 20 years. On the right side, you see the far future, which is like 50 years from now. This is really important. I mean, everyone in the Israeli water sector needs to understand those trends: agriculture, energy, water. It means that we're going to have more and more dry period. How it's going to affect agriculture? So what is the effect on the soil moisture? Because if the soil is going to be dry, I will need to irrigate more. I will need to bring more water from the, I don't know, from the river system into my land, to my agriculture. What we see here, again, for Israel, we can do the same for Philippines. We have the global model that we calibrated for everywhere in the world. So we have the capability to do it. So you see here, again, it's the opposite trend of what we see in the former slide. I just show you increase in dry periods, so the consequence is decrease in soil moisture. Again, I didn't say that there is less rain. You can have the same amount of rain, but the spread of the rain will be different because there are more and more dry periods. So at the end, the farmer see less moisture in his crop. So again, it's very, very important. Future soil moisture projection, and everything again at the end goes to the river system and the water drainage system. So this figure shows for the Mediterranean the trend for the stream flow in the river. In agreement to the former slide, we see here a decrease in the amount of water that will be in the river. So like 20 or 30%, it's a lot. We have much more high resolution figure for our river system, for example, for the Jordan River, the Lake of Galilee, if you're familiar. We can project exactly what is going to be. But the message here is that, okay, we have global warming, we have climate change, but I show you now an approach that how we can take it and take it into pieces. See what it's going to be to affect, how it's going to affect our land, our crop, our evaporation, and the river system. So I think it's very important. Just one example from India, from Asia, not from Israel. So this is a project that I did together with Mekorot, which is the Israeli water company 2 years ago, in order to do the same. I mean, this is Punjab. Punjab is in northwest India. They have a lot of water coming from the Himalaya, but they have huge amount of agriculture and water consumption, mostly for rice and wheat, and they don't have enough water. So what you see here, it's a bit difficult to see it, but it is how much water I will need to allocate to my soil. So it's applied irrigation to soil. The outcome of this model is calculating how much water every farmer or the state of Punjab will need to allocate it to their soil. And we took like 2020 to 2050 on the right side, and then on the left side, 2050 to 2080, compare it to the historical period, and the conclusion was blue. What does it mean, blue? Blue, if you see on the left side, it means more water. Red, less water. Blue, it means that we need to allocate to agriculture more water. I didn't say that in Punjab they're going to have less water precipitation. Maybe they're going to have more rain because the monsoon is going to be stronger. But this rain is not going to infiltrate into the soil because it's going to be floods. And in 20 years from now, they will need to bring more and more water, 20% more. It's a huge amount of water into their crop in order to keep growing rice in the same level as today. So I think this is a bit unique approach. It's not just precipitation, temperature, that high level example of global climate change, but specifically for the region of Punjab. If you look carefully, you can see the river crossing here. They have a lot of river coming from the Himalaya, but then they need to allocate the water also to Pakistan. So, and then the solution is building more reservoir, drilling more underground water wells, lot of other activity that they can do. But first of all, let's see what is the projection. Let's look in your region and see some tools for your region for the Philippines. So I just prepared today for August and October, the relatively wet season in your area. So I highlight here Mindanao, southern part of the Philippines. And lucky for you, the model is projecting over wetter than normal precipitation in the coming month, in August and September. So you can check me in about a month and just let us know, maybe to tell me if I was right. So the green color says that in the Philippines, southern part of the Philippines, you're going to have more rain than the normal amount. So if you have 300 millimeters in August, you're going to have a bit more than that. So this is just one projection for, on the left side is August and on the right side is September. So you're going to face wetter than average water condition in the coming 2 months. I prepared another slide for your area, but this is, I think, more interesting because, again, precipitation is important, but for agriculture and for water management, also for energy, is the stream flow anomaly. What will be the condition of your rivers in Mindanao in September and October in respect to the normal? So in September, you're going to have positive anomaly. You're going to have more water. You can irrigate it easily. But in October, you can see that it's not unique, it's not like unified. Southern part of Philippines and Mindanao is in blue, which means positive trend, but the northern part is in yellow color, which means that you're going to have drier than normal condition. So I think information like that in monthly scale, annual scale, can help a lot to authority in a local. I mean, it doesn't help you if someone show you like IPCC report. Okay, what does it mean for my area? This is how we work in Israel. We do like high resolution modeling, and then we try to project and to see what is going to be the condition in the coming weeks and months. And then the decision, everyone can decide what to do. Again, to build reservoir, to drill more to underground water. But first of all, let's see what is the projection. So this is real-time forecasting for your area. I promised you 1 or 2 slides for the Tel Aviv. So let's go west from the Philippines to the Tel Aviv. You see here the urban area of Tel Aviv. Excuse me for the Hebrew titles. A lot of information, but it's not so important. We are working together and closely with the city of Tel Aviv to help them to mitigate to climate change. Not everything is, Israel is really centralized water sector. Everything is ruled by the water authority, but still there is room for the local sector and local authorities to to do their own actions. So in number, Tel Aviv is today like less than 1 million, but it's going to be over 1 million in the future. Growing population, growing urbanization, and flooding is a major issue in Tel Aviv. You see here the map of Tel Aviv. There are 2 rivers. I don't know if you can call them rivers, but 2 channels that cross Tel Aviv that makes a lot of problems to the city of Tel Aviv, to the drainage system. You can see on the left side the drainage system of Tel Aviv. All the cities is being drained to the Mediterranean. The city want to be ready for intense rain event. So it's less for water consumption, less for agriculture, because there's no agriculture in this area. Other lecture will talk about the Shafdan. Shafdan is the place where we deliver water for agriculture. But we have also, runoff problem. It can affect also the water quality, the sewage system in Tel Aviv. So they want to be prepared in advance to extreme rain event. So actually we prepare for them a map. As I showed you for Mindanao, the different anomaly for precipitation and stream flow. This is for precipitation. The different color shows, you can do zoom in for the city of Tel Aviv, and let's see just one example. So for example, if tomorrow, yes, now in August, there's no rain, but if now in the wet season and there are going to be extreme weather event, they will see red code alert, which means if you look on the right side here in black, I just click on the map, I choose a location, this is the latitude, longitude, and it tells me that the city is going to be inundated, flooded. Not only how much rain is going to be, because this is, it's interesting, but it's not the main issue, but either it's going to be flooded or not. How do I know it? Because I know the system, the drainage system of the city, as I showed previously, how many pipes I have in the city, what is the capacity of the drainage in the city. So we have all this data, and at the end, at the control center of the city of Tel Aviv, they see just this map without, all those stories of precipitation and flooding. Colors, red alert means be ready. Yellow, you don't have to be ready. Okay, it can be also be a map like that shows the water depth. Sometimes this is maybe much more relevant to mega cities like Manila, that you want to detect which area are going to be, inundated and flooded, and how high it's going to be. So the red dot here represents, again, this is Tel Aviv, and in the middle is the river, the Akon River. On the west side, you see the low area in Tel Aviv, and we project like a few days in advance that the city is going to be inundated. Of course, you need a lot of data to do it in GIS. You need the digital elevation model, to have like the elevation data of the city. So again, this is just an example. Just one last slide. So this algorithm or possibility to do it in Tel Aviv can be applied everywhere. This is an example for Thailand, Bangkok, and India on the right side. So for Bangkok, it was for drought. We developed a drought index for South East Asia. You can see also here the Philippines. Again, colors, like in Tel Aviv. Green, which mean normal condition. Yellow, be prepared for dry period. And red mean, again, it's not drought. It's not like in Israel that we have drought, but severe dry conditions. So this is from last year. Before the monsoon season, because of the La Nina in Bangkok, in Thailand, they have like few weeks without precipitation. There's a lot of agriculture north from Bangkok. And if you have such indexes, and you can see it in real time, it can give you a lot of information. You know when to irrigate, you know where to put the seeds. If the monsoon is delaying in 2 weeks, it means that you won't be able to grow your rice. So it's extremely important. On the right side, we see India. We see flood code, red flood code, expect severe flooding. So just, snapshot, really fast example that, because the model are global, but the calibration is local. We need to have the local condition of the local drainage system, reservoir, and then we can calibrate the model and apply it everywhere in the world. Okay, so this is a global decision support tools for flood and drought management. It can be also be as table. You don't need to read everything, but 0 mean normal condition. Again, it can be also for energy. And then it goes for -3, extreme storm condition, or +3, extreme hot and dry condition. The advantage of using such indexes is it's normalize the data. You don't need to understand what is the meaning of 50 millimeters. If tomorrow in the Philippines we're gonna have 50 millimeters, what does it mean? How it will impact my business, my agriculture? It's already normalized. We are looking on indexes. This is my approach. This is what I learned during the last 3 years working with government and company during the around the world, that decision making and engineer give them what they need. Give them the insight. We call it insight. In Israel, I call it weather intelligence. It's like in army that you give intelligence to the commander. If you are using weather intelligence, you can make much better decision. You can save money, you can save property, and you can save also life. So this is just the scheme. Again, this is from Israel, from the Lake of Galilee. You create this weather intelligence I just mentioned. You need data, you need models. Then, but this is not something that you give to decision making. You should never give them models. You develop for them indexes. And the indexes should be different from every sector. The agriculture need to have its own index, energy and water management, different indexes. Then you develop together with the stakeholder, with the professional, the local one, the impact model. I cannot do it by myself for India or for Thailand. I need, collaboration with local people. And the end, you have the decision making, the optimal cost benefit, these tools at the end. But you see all the process. On the right side, you see on the input data, like the models, the precipitation. This is nice, but this is for scientists, not for decision making. We need to take decision, but most important, we need to take action, and we need to take the optimal cost benefit action. This is what I'm trying to do, at least in Israel, and I think we do it quite well with cities and with other sectors. So just to conclude, if we go back after we travel around the world to Israel, and here my colleague, the officials from the Israeli Water Authority will talk about it. Israel is a very good example of all the time scarce condition of water condition. We don't have enough water. We will never have enough water. So we need to add more additional sources of water. We had like extreme dry period, very long one, 5 years of drought condition between 2013 to 2017, and we were able to overcome it. And when I'm saying overcome it, it means that all sectors received the water. Agriculture, we almost didn't cut demand. So agriculture, industry, municipal, everyone got the water. And the key to success, I mean, you talked about the secret. So I think the secret is the governmental level, the private sector, and the collaboration between the two sides. Everyone bring his effort and technology to the table, and together you can come up with this box that I just showed that help you to take optimal and better decision. So this is just in half an hour, the whole story of the secret, how you defined it, and I hope you found it interesting.
Wow, that was really, really interesting. Thank you so much. I forgot to tell you that if you have questions during the presentation, you're welcome to present them using the chat. And at the end of each lecture, I will present your questions to the lecturer. So since I didn't tell you that before, I'll tell you now that you can. And if anyone has a burning question, you can even open your microphone and present it to Amir. So you can either use the chat or let me see. I see someone has a hand up. Yes, please. I don't see your name, but it's from South Cotabato.
Yeah. Good evening. From the Philippines.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Can I continue now?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. First, I would like to thank the presentation of Mr. Amir. I got so much information from your presentation. Actually, I really appreciate when you provide maps for decision making, especially looking for, just like what you're saying a while ago, having the weather intelligence. But you see, Philippines now, although we have different agencies like the PAG-ASA, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration. It gives information as to weather forecasts for all over the Philippines, for example. We have relatively different local data versus the PAG-ASA data that's been given, because as you see, the Philippines is a typhoon belt, and we are experiencing just like what Sir Manny Piñol have said, that indeed Philippines is flooded and it rains just normally all throughout the year. And what I'm interested here to know, if how did Israel in your country, how did Israel manage to provide such data, very accurate data on a specific area? For example, I know that you've been using like high tech models for mapping, for example. At the local government units, skills or capabilities of employees or personnel handling, for example, such data is very limited. So, for example, temperature and rainfall data can be gathered by the Office of the Municipal Agriculture, for example. And our equipments were not that sophisticated. That's one. You see, we just use the, I think not the ordinary equipments only. Okay. Sometimes when they get destroyed by extreme weather, some were not replaced, and you see the data gathering is not complete, like for a long period of time. So now this local data that we should use for decision making is not that intact, or is not that complete for a long period of, they say, 10 years or 20 years, so that we can see the trend or project, compared to the PAG-ASA, which is a national government agency, and where their offices or their satellite is far from, for example, from my province. Maybe they could cover many cities, I guess, or provinces, but it may not be the actual, like the temperature from the PAG-ASA, for example. If it's located in General Santos City, that's the nearest nearest station. If they give us data, for example, that the temperature or the average temperature for the province of South Cotabato is like 30 degrees Celsius.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Can you maybe make the question a bit shorter so that we can understand what the question is? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm asking Mr. Gamir. Yeah, I'm sorry if it's a very long introduction or background. Yeah.
Yes.
What could be the possible strategy that Israel did? Why they have produced such good information or data sets that were able that the government were able to use and have a very good strategy to manage the water in terms of flood and drought.
Yeah, I understand the question and the background. And shortly, you're definitely right. Everything starts from that data, and you need to use technology in order to produce high resolution data. So we have in Israel the tools to do it. We do like gridded data. You take all the data collected from the National Weather Service, but then you do it like upgraded and do it at gridded data. So it's called big data analysis. So in order to do it, there is a need for capacity building. The term is capacity building, how to manipulate data. So everything starts and ends with data. Before we go to decision making, we need to build capacity in order to collect and to view the data better. We have a lot of experience of that, but it's not easy. It's not trivial. You need to teach communities how to build capacity to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amir. Okay, so
interject.
Yes, Secretary Piñol.
I perfectly understood the question of the lady from South Cotabato. And I'd like to rephrase it actually. She was just trying to ask, is it possible for Mindanao to have its own localized data gathering system? Because that would be more accurate for our island. I think that's the gist of the question that she wanted to ask.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sir Manny Piñol, for that rejoinder of the question.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask that you know that you can rename yourself using the 3 buttons on the top of the screen, of each screen. And if you can put your names, it would be really great. You know, you could put your name and then the region where you come from. And that way we would be able to address you using your name. It would be more familiar. We're going to spend some time together and we can get to know each other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so now without further ado, at the end of the so again, questions, please present them in the chat, and at the end of the lecture, I will present all of the questions to the lecturer, and also there will be some announcements at the end of the towards the end of the session. So now without further ado, I would like to invite our next lecturer, Omer Vardi, who is the Commissioner of Water and Sewage Corporations in the Israel Water Authority. So Omer, the microphone is yours now.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
We had some technical over here in the morning, but I hope now everybody will be able to see the presentation. Just let me know if you can see it. Just a second. Let me try. What can you see? Can
yes,
you see
we see it. We see it clearly, but we see the presenter view. With we don't see. We see the with your comments.
Yeah, now you can see it.
For now, we still see with the comments.
Just a sec.
Stop the share and reshare it again, maybe.
Yeah. Just a second, okay? Okay, let's try this one. Now you can see it?
No, now we don't see it at all.
Okay. Now?
Yes, it's coming up. We don't. Yes, now we see it perfectly. It's perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties up here in the morning. So good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so you can see the presentation and you can hear me, so we're right on top of everything. So first of all, good afternoon. I'm honored to be here. My name is, as you can see, Omer Vardi. I'm the Commissioner of Water and Sewage Corporations in Israel in the Water Authority. First of all, I want to thank also my dear colleague and friend Amir Givati for his fascinating lecture. He's one of the best in fields, if not the best. I want to try and to continue from his lecture and to give you my point of view. So first of all, let me just say that the main issue over here is decision making. Okay, this is the main point. How do you make a decision for the long lasting decision? Now I want to start from a general point of view, because before focusing on Israel water sector, I want to start from a general point of view. So, as Amir said, there is a consensus. There is a water crisis in the world. Without exaggerating, there is a global threat. We're facing a global threat. There's a larger proportion of the world is currently experiencing a water stress, and according to experts, this is one crisis that will grow more severe in the coming decade. Now, the first thing I would like to talk about from a regulatory point of view is that there is no doubt that you have to manage the water crisis. I mean, it's a long-time solution. It's not an instant solution. It's a long, short period solution. You can have all the tools you want, like Amir said over here just before me. You can have all the data and all the technology, but you have to have a way of thinking, a way of managing the crisis, because it is a crisis. Now, I know it sounds obvious, but once you do that, you understand that you are in a crisis, and you have to manage it. You have the legitimization to try and handle it and to attack it from all fronts. You have to take actions in many fronts, and of course, you're going to hear lectures from different experts and in different topics and aspects of water crisis management and water sector management. And I would like, you can still see the presentation, because in my computer I can't see anything. You can see the presentation? Someone?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So going back to the general view, okay, continuing from the previous slide, I want to talk about what we call in Israel the drinking water episode. So on one hand, we do know that by 2050, by the year 2050, almost 70% of the world's population will suffer from shortage of drinking water, potable water. But on the other hand, we also know that 25% of the water is being lost due to leaks and network delivery problems. So we know there are crisis, okay? We know what are the problems, and it's right in front of our eyes. We just need to take action, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So back to Israel, okay? So as you can see, tiny country in the Middle East that had to adapt to a state of lack of precipitation and many consecutive years of droughts. Now, this is a humoristic slide. I don't know if you're all familiar with the story, but in the Bible, we have the story about Moses' abilities to draw water from the rock. Now, it is a humoristic slide, but in my opinion, it's one of the most important ones, because Israel had to understand that she has to do something. There was no other choice, and we had to be creative and innovative. Okay, now we all have to understand that Israel was in a very different place just a decade ago. We had a deficit of over 2 billion cubic meters. We had a risk of permanent damage to aquifers. We had there was a lack of overall planning, water shortage, leaking infrastructure, water pollution risk. It was a very, very different place. By the way, if you can see the numbers, let's talk basic numbers. The average total natural enrichment in Israel is around 1.2 billion cubic meters. The water consumption in Israel is over 2 billion cubic meters. So we have an annual shortage of over 45%. Now, I want to talk about what Israel calls the Israeli model. It's called, in a very elaborate and fancy initials, the Integrated Water Resources Management, IWOM. But I want to talk about, because the water shortage is a fact. Now, maybe Israel overslept, maybe we were naive, but in this short presentation, I will try to review the main steps that Israel took in order to manage the shortage. Now, as you can see, it's kind of a spoiler alert, if you want. The main success of the Israeli model, to my opinion, to the expert's opinion, lies in the fact that we attacked all fronts. We reach out to all aspects of water crisis management, as you can see, IWOM. And of course, as I said before, you're hopefully going to hear different lectures from different angles and aspects, but I want to focus on what we call in Israel not pricing. You have different lectures about pricing, about awareness, education, about legislation, structure of but of course about policy and regulation. And this is where I come in, okay? So let's dive in just a little bit. I want to show you what is the status in Israel just before 10 years ago. Now, if you can see over here, you can see a map of Israel. It's not a very high resolution one, but as you can see there are many different names, different local authorities. Actually 254, today it's 257 local authorities to be exact. And in Israel, as you must understand, in Israel, by law, the water resources are public property. They are controlled by the state, and the state gave, until the year 2000, gave the local authorities the license to manage it, okay, until the year 2000. After that came what we call today the Water and Sewage Corporation Law, or Water and Sewage Corporation Act. Now, if you can see, as I said, so until the year 2000, local authorities were responsible for water and sewage management. But did it work? I mean, was it a good thing? Was it a good situation? Spoiler alert: it didn't work, because there were simply too many players, too many bodies, too many authorities, and too little governance. Now, I want to show you a picture, because I don't like so much slogans, but sometimes slogans are the best way to manifest a message. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. I want to show a picture from Tel Aviv, 2009, only 12 years ago. Now, as you can see over here, there is a road construction, a leaking pipe problem in the middle of a high road in Tel Aviv. All the traffic had to be stopped. You have different professional vehicles in the middle of the road. This is not the right solution. This is not the right situation in a country's way of thinking and in a country's way of behaving to the public, because you can see it's affecting the public. Okay, so I want to start diving into the what we call over here the decision making. So as I said, I will focus on the policy and regulation steps that Israel took in order to try and manage the water crisis. And after we realized we had too many bodies, too many local authorities making decisions in the local municipality for their own small and municipality public, we understood we had to take action. So in 2007, okay, this is the key year in the Israeli water sector, the Israeli Water Authority was founded. Now, at the head of the Water Authority, I try to exemplify over here in this slide. At the head of the Water Authority, you have the Water Authority Board, which consists of the members of the relevant government offices, if you want to call it like that. You have a member of the Ministry of Finance, you have a member of the Ministry of Environment, you have a member of the Ministry of Interior, the member of the Ministry of Infrastructure, Agriculture, and of course, you also have members which are public representatives. Now, in the head, the chairman is as you can call it, the CEO of the Water Authority, the head of the Water Authority. And I would like to focus the discussion after I talk about the Water Authority Board, I would like to talk about two main issues in the aspect of regulation and decision making. I'm going to focus on one, just briefly, about the structure of the tariff. And the second topic we're going to be how we decided to redefine water supply on the water sector in Israel. So as you can see over here in this slide, you have a one-stop shop, if you want to call it. Okay, it's like a round table. All the decisions regarding the water sector in Israel are decided in one, and I'm going to emphasize it again and again and again, one professional, not political table. Okay, this is the main difference and the main gap between what we had until the year 2007 and after the year 2007. So, as I said before, I'm going to talk briefly about the tariff. So one of the first decisions that Israel took by the Water Authority took in 2007 was the understanding that we had to make a reform in the water tariffs by two main principles. One of them was that the tariff, it has the principle of covering all costs. The tariff has to be founded on the principle that the water sector costs have to be manifested in the tariff. So the tariff has to provide resources for infrastructure needed for water supply and also encourage, of course, water conservation because you are facing the public. The second principle was fairness and uniformity. As a rule, we decided that all users, all consumers in Israel are going to give are going to pay the same price for the potable water. So after realizing we have to set a tariff that cover costs, we moved on. I'm going to show that. And we decided also to have what we call a two-block tariff system. The first one is reachable water, a specific amount of water vital for the human consumption for the potable water. And the second one is more expensive, but they are subsidizing each other. The low tariff is subsidized by the high tariff, which enables the normative domestic consumers, of course, to save quite a significant amount in their bills because they are conservative. Okay, now the method. So you have the tariff for the consumer, because, as I said before, is the same price for all of the consumers in Israel. You have the tariff for the water purchase, whether it's the local authority and whether it's the water and sewage company or corporation that came after the authority. I will talk about it just a bit. Okay? And you have what we call the interval between them. And the interval between them is the financial source of water and sewage development. Let me remind you, the tariff is one that covers all costs. So that's about the tariff. Now you are facing a situation where you don't have any gaps between the price and the amount of investment you have to make in infrastructure. The second principle I wanted to talk about is I want to go back a few years, okay, is the water and sewage corporations. Now, I want to go back a few years, okay? So in 2001, we had the Water and Sewage Corporation law. In 2007, if you remember, we had founded the Water Authority and the Water Authority Board. And in 2008, we started establishing a water and sewage company and making it what we call mandatory. I will talk about it briefly in just a second. Now, the water and sewage corporations, first of all, you have to realize they are, since 2008, they are mandatory. Until 2008, they were voluntary by the local municipalities, okay? I have a problem with that, but they are business entities, okay? They are there, the only purpose, the sole purpose is to invest in infrastructure. Now, another key point, those water and sewage corporations are owned by the municipalities, but they are functioning as a business, how you call it, a business entities, okay? The sole function, as I said, is to manage the water and sewage system. They are regulated and supervised by the Israel Water Authority, and I come in over here as the Commission of the Water and Sewage Corporations. They have tariff regulations that reflects and recognize water and sewage costs, and the efficiency in investment in infrastructures are impeccable. Now the question is, did it work? I want to show you a short movie. I hope I will be able to share it. Just a sec.
In a country like Israel, where water resources are scarce, efficiency...
No, we cannot see the film. We don't see it.
For years, large amounts of water were lost due to obsolete pipelines and faulty systems. Sewage polluted the environment.
No, we cannot.
Not yet.
Deal with this crisis, Israel established...
Maybe make a new share.
Yeah, I'm trying. The technical guys assured me that it will work, but it's not. I guess we're better in water sectors and technical issues. Maybe I get back to the movie. A spoiler alert, it did work. Nowadays we have 56 companies. Okay, I'm not sure if the company, it's companies or corporations, it's basically the same thing. 56 companies, around 7 million consumers under those 56 companies. If you remember the number from before, the 257 local authorities, most of them, 158 from them, are incorporated into those 56 water and sewage companies. Now, the basic math means that we have a water and sewage corporation, for example, that provides services in the area of more than one local authority. Because we have several local authorities that decided that they want to have a combined regional water and sewage corporation. And the amount of water, of course, is most of the drinking water and agricultural water in Israel. Now, by the way, if you want to talk about budget, there are only, it's a very, relatively to the water, to the local municipalities, there are only 2,000 employees in all of those 56 companies. And of course, those employees are instead, they replaced the employees in the local authorities that was handling the water sector. Now, it's all about regulation. Basically, it's all about regulation. The water authority, if I keep coming back, but it's highly important, okay? The water authority board has what you call independent legislative authority. And in order to preserve and to protect the public interest and the independence of the water and sewage corporations, appropriate regulation was required. So let's talk just a little bit, let's dive in about into the resolution of the regulation over the water and sewage corporation. So first of all, we are approving the appointed directors and CEOs in the boards of those water and sewage corporations. We are approving the financial statements, auditing reports, loan applications, and even budget plans. who are supervising the organizational structure and the salary of the employees, and we're also controlling and approving transactions, and even to the shareholders. And let me remind you again, the shareholders are the local authorities, the municipality, and we're controlling the dividends. And of course, as I said before, setting a tariff. Now, just a small example. Let's talk numbers, because after all, you know, we can talk all day long without seeing results. And the basic rule in regulation is, I call it the evolution of regulation. Okay, and the basic rule in regulation is to check if it's actually working, if it actually works, and keep on making changes and adjustment. Because as I said before, it's a long-term solution, and regulation is a bunch of words, but it has to be applicable to the field and to the water sector if you want to make a real change. So here you can see a dramatic increase in investment once the corporation has been given the right framework of rules and regulation. You can see different cities in Israel: Eilat, Tiberia, Beersheba, Holon, Nes Ziona, okay? And you can see the infrastructure investment pre-corporation establishment by the local authority, and infrastructure investment after the establishment of the corporation. I think the numbers talk for themselves. I mean, it's obvious. Once they were given the right framework and the authority and the right tools, they are doing their job. And their job is only the sole purpose, I repeat it again and again, the sole purpose is to invest in the water sector, in the infrastructure. Another example will be the non-revenue water, okay? So let me share with you some personal data. I live in a small city in Israel called Yavne, okay? Before the establishment of the Water and Sewage Corporation in Yavne, it had a 33%, reported by the way, we believe it was more than that, okay? 33% of non-revenue water loss. After the establishment, Yavne is right over here, you can see the main, yeah? After the establishment of the Water and Sewage Corporation, the number is around 16%, okay? And of course, it's lower and it keeps on dropping. That means, regarding my question, did it work? Yes, it's working. Once you are making the right decision, the long-term decision, and you're giving the right players, you're choosing the right players, the foundation of the Water and Sewage Corporation, the foundation of the Water and Sewage Corporation in Israel was actually the manifesting of the whole idea of the Israeli Water Authority that was founded in 2007. You have to choose the right players and to give them the right framework and to give them the responsibility and the authority to do something that was never been done before, I won't lie, it's not easy. It wasn't easy because it was easy to take the responsibility and the authority and the power to decide from the local authority to the water and sewage company. And there is a very, very delicate balance between the municipality and the water and sewage corporation. But the underlying and the main fact, it is working. There are political aspects, there are professional aspects, there are economical aspects. But once you decide you have a crisis, and you have to manage it, and you have to deal with it in a long-term solution, and you are choosing the right players, you can do something good for the water sector. And if in Israel it worked, there is no reason that it won't work in the Philippines. That's it. I was short. The movie didn't work, but I hope the message was clear. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Omer, maybe now try to stop the share and try to put the movie on. Just one more attempt, and if it doesn't work, then we will let it go.
I will try. Just a sec, okay?
Okay. Let's try it. בשיר אתה שם את ה-V, נכון? בווידאו, שיפור הווידאו, או נכון? כשאתה עושה את ה-share screen, אז יש את ה-checkbox. for video sharing.
In a country like Israel, where
No.
water resources are scarce, efficiency and professionalism is the
No,
name of the
wait,
game.
wait, now we see it, yes.
For
We see it,
years,
great.
large amounts of water were
So let's
lost.
start from the beginning. Okay.
In a
Yes,
country
great.
like Israel, where water resources are scarce, efficiency and professionalism is the name of the game. For years, large amounts of water were lost due to obsolete pipelines and faulty systems. Sewage polluted the environment. To deal with this crisis, Israel established regional water and sewage
Now
corporations.
we,
which serve over
for me,
6
it's
million customers around
frozen.
the
The screen
country.
is frozen.
Great urban infrastructure to the 21st century. This drastic step revolutionized the entire water distribution system. Over 1 million water meters were replaced with advanced and accurate devices, which allow the corporations to read meters remotely, detecting leaks and saving on outdated for work. Thousands of kilometers of old water and sewage pipelines have been changed across the country, and extensive work has been done to prevent leakage and water loss throughout the system. Since these steps were taken,
No, we're not seeing it, Omer. Okay, so I suggest you just give it, you will give us the links, and then people can maybe enter and see it.
Now you can hear me? Yeah, sure. I don't know what's the problem over here, but I will fix it.
Okay.
Anyhow, thank you for your time, and those are the basic fundamentals of the regulatory aspects of the Israeli water sector nowadays. The challenge keeps on going, of course. Yeah, we're not done. But there's a very bright future.
Okay.
Tommy, can
Yes.
I be given the first shot at raising questions?
Secretary Pignol, you can always be the first one.
I was actually listening very intently to the presentation of Omer, and I was smiling, just as the other governors were also smiling.
Tommy, you should sorry to interfere. You should do the screen, stop the share screen.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'd like to recognize online Governor Nancy Katamko of my home province. And she actually raised a very important issue. That is, unlike in Israel, in the Philippines, we have so many agencies handling our water resources. We have the National Irrigation Administration handling irrigation water for agriculture. We have the Local Water Utilities Administration handling the water districts. We have the Bureau of Soil and Water Management. We have the National Water Resources Board. So I was intently listening actually to the explanation of Omer about one body covering the whole water issue. And from where I sit, actually, I understand why you are successful, because there's only one agency covering everything: water for irrigation, water for drinking, water for industrial use. Whereas in the Philippines, actually, it's an amalgam of so many associations, so many agencies handling our water problem. And so we're learning. That's a very good point raised. The other point that I would like to raise, Omer, if you would be kind enough to go back to your map showing the nations of the world which are water stressed. And I'm curious because I think I saw the Philippines having a red color, meaning we are water stressed. May I know why that is?
Omer?
I'm trying to share it again.
Okay.
But I'm listening.
By the way, also would like to recognize, Tommy, Governor Wilter Palma of one of our provinces, Zamboanga, Sibugay. I think Governor Bambi Imano is also online of Misamis Oriental. We have about 5 governors. We have Governor Edwin Ongchua of Northern Samar, a province which is actually outside of my area, but he really asked that he be included in this program, and we would like to welcome him. We also have the mayor of Zamboanga City, a city that has also water problems, Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar of the city of Zamboanga, and several other mayors who are joining us tonight.
עומר, תגיד לו, זה מפה לא שלך, מפה בינלאומית.
Okay.
Just a second. Trying.
של מחלקת המחקר. כתוב על המפה.
Now you can see it.
And we can see it, but I'll go into presentation. Go into full presentation mode.
Oh.
Now you can see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. It was actually a map showing.
It's one of the first ones. Yes,
that's the one.
right there.
That's it.
Ken.
Yeah.
Okay, and then go into full
Stress
presentation mode.
represents extremely high stress. What do you mean by extremely high stress?
The source of this information is World Resources Institute, not the State of Israel.
Okay. And how do you define water stress?
As you can see over here in the map, okay? It's basically a matter of percentage. As you see over here, that if you can read, this map shows the average exposure of water users, average exposure of water users in each country to water stress, the ratio of total withdrawals to total renewability supply in a given area. A higher percentage means more water users are competing for limited supplies. This is the...
And the Philippines among the countries which are water stressed?
Again?
Is the Philippines among the countries identified as water stressed? Because I see it in red.
The map is from 2013. It's 8 years ago.
2014, but yes, maybe it's different nowadays.
Oh, okay. That's strange because while we may not have a very efficient water distribution system, actually water is not supposed to be a problem in the Philippines because we have lots of it.
So, first of all, I would love to receive from you a specific data about it. But as you can see, the presentation, the slide is from the World Resources Institute. So,
all right, okay.
I think
it's interesting. I think we should look into it. Maybe Omer, you can look into it a little bit on your free time, and if you do have any insights, then maybe come back to us with it during the webinar.
I think this is Dr. Lior Asaf.
Leo, you're frozen, Leo.
Related to the natural participation or the natural, but to man-made infrastructure as well. So in this sense, if you can see, there are many other countries in tropical regions that are considered to be as Indonesia and other countries in the regions that are supposed to be stressed, not only because of natural replenishment of aquifer, but because of the ability to serve the community. But this is something that have to be checked. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there are some questions that were presented in the chat. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I have the floor, Madam?
Yes, Governor, you have the floor.
Yeah, this is Governor Palma of the province of Zamboanga, Sibugay. I was made to understand that the water authority in Israel is a government-owned and controlled corporation. Am I right, Mr. Omer?
The water authority is a governmental authority. The water and sewage corporations are not governmental. Okay, they are business entities. Okay, with high resolution of regulation.
But it's being managed, funded by the municipality. But doing business. Meaning to say,
not exactly. The only source of income, the budget is relying on the fact on the price of the water they are selling to the consumers. Okay, and the tariff of the water is set by the water authority.
Yeah, who owns this water authority? Who owns this It's the government, right?
Yeah, it's the Israeli Governmental Water Authority.
That's right. It's meaning to say it's owned and controlled by the government. Am I correct?
Yes, the board of the water authority, the board of the water authority is a representative of different, as I said before, different relevant governmental offices. A member of the Agriculture Office, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Infrastructure, Ministry of Interior. It's a board.
Yeah. So before the creation of this water authority, was there a time that it was owned by a private sector, ordinary guy, ordinary Israeli? None.
No.
So when it was conceptualized, it was really owned by the government.
Yeah, it was owned by the government, but let me reveal the absurd. It was owned by the government, but it was not regulated or governed by the government.
Yeah. I understand that. So, here in the Philippines, we have two systems. It's owned by the government and the other one's being owned by the private sector. In your experience, in your, let's say, analysis, which is better? Would it be good for the government to own and engage in business, or leave it to the private sector?
For our experience, that's my added value to the conversation. To our experience, if you don't have...
Pardon? It's good for the government?
To my opinion and to our experience, Israel experience, you have to have a general idea of what the government wants for its citizens. Okay? It's not a matter of private sector completely. The water and sewage in your country, in our country, is not something you can privatize completely.
Yeah,
therefore,
because sorry. Because previously, during the past administrations and decades, this is the water system, the water authority, or the distribution, engaging in business, is owned by the government, but it was privatized and it was given to the private sector. I don't know for whatever reason why the previous leaders devolved it to or privatized it to the private sector. That's why I'm asking whether it's good for the government to own and control this corporation or leave it to the private sector.
So as I said, to my opinion, the government has to be involved and has to be on top of things and has to be in charge. You can take specific actions and aspects of the water sector and privatize it. But the main idea, the main focus of making sure that your public, your consumers, your citizens are going to get potable potable water to the drinking faucet, okay, is an issue for the government, not for the private sector.
I think it's if I may intervene, it's Ambassador Flu speaking, just to say, obviously water is a very sensitive issue. In many countries, it's also very political, it's connected to regulation and so on. It's a very sensitive issue. This is the Israeli experience. Obviously, each country has its own challenges and its own culture and political culture. So we are sharing the Israeli approach, and that's very important just to mention.
May I add?
I'm so happy.
Just a minute. May I add some words?
Yes, Chezi, the floor is yours.
Since water supply and sewage collecting and treatment is an existential service, you can't leave it to the private sector. So the corporation can rent some services from the private sector, but they are in charge of these services. It's public, not private.
Yes, thank you.
Just share my thoughts on this, Tami. And
yes,
I would like
Secretary Pinyol, yes, please.
My fellow leaders in Mindanao. I believe that this is something that we should really learn from, because Israel, from what I've heard from Omer, actually, treats water as one commodity, one complete commodity. There is no differentiation of whether that water goes to agriculture, to drinking because they recycle it. So if you recycle your water, you could not possibly separate agriculture from drinking. What we have in the Philippines actually is a system where we have a national irrigation administration that actually produces water just for agricultural purposes. We have the local water utilities administration managing the local water services. We have private corporations running water companies in Metro Manila, for example. So it's a very messy situation for us. And I believe that after listening to the presentation today, we should ask ourselves, do we have this complete cycle of water utilization? No, we don't have. Because in our country right now, a water district only produces water for drinking. It doesn't care about sewerage and sewage and recycling for agricultural purposes. Their end game is just to produce water for drinking. What happens after the drinking and the bathing and the washing, they don't care about that. So I think we should learn from this Israel experience, because now here they have a limited amount of water, but they're able to manage it very well, from water generation to utilization to catching the wastewater to recycling to using this for agriculture. So it's one commodity being handled by one agency. And I think this is the most important lesson that we've learned tonight, and that we, the local leaders of Mindanao, should actually ponder on this. Should we, as asked by Governor Palma, should we leave our water supply concerns to the hands of the private sector, who don't care about recycling it, who don't care about using it for agriculture? Or do we come up with a system similar to Israel's, which is actually covers the whole utilization process and functions of water? This is a very important lesson for us tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Piñol. As a water user, I'd like to share with you that I'm in Israel. One of the things that I find very important is the hybrid, or the fact that it is also in the hands of the private sector, because the private sector is more flexible and more easily moved by a very simple motivation, which is profit, and yet it is regulated, so they cannot do what they want. For example, if somebody does not pay their water bill, it is not automatic that they have the right to turn off the person's water. This is just an example. It's the permission that the water corporations get to turn off someone's water has to pass through the water authority. Is that correct, Omer?
Even more than that. Nowadays, since 2015, there is no possibility, no option to turn off the water for the end consumer, for the potable water, for the domestic consumer, for example.
Even if they do not pay their bill, right?
Even if they do not pay their bill, because, by the way, this is like, if you want to call it a moral decision, ethical decision. We've decided that every citizen has the right to get the water in his house, in his home, and we are not gonna turn off the supply of the water. There is a specific procedure where a water and sewage corporation can come to the water authority and ask for permission, basically for my permission, to turn off a specific consumer water supply. But it's very, very rare in a very, very unconventional circumstances. So I want to add up just one little thing. I agree with you, Tammy. It is like a hybrid model, okay? They are business entities, but they are so regulated that profit is not the main issue. It is an issue because they are able to allocate the dividends after this to their shareholders. And by the way, as I said before, the shareholders are the local municipalities. It's not a private sector. It's the money trail keeps on living in the public sector and not in the private sector. So this is the main issue. And the other point I wanted to emphasize is the improvement in what we call the SLA, the service level agreement between the Water and Sewage Corporation to the end consumer. It is highly and much better nowadays than it was 10 and 15 years ago. And it's all regulated, it is all written in very high resolution.
Okay, so we will have more time during the sessions to delve deeper into that. I'd like to share with you some of the things that were written here in the chat. For one, well, there's a question for Amir, who has already left us, but maybe one of the other experts can respond. Does the technology you use in data gathering for the model involve remote sensing and monitoring systems and equipment? Because maybe we need to procure these remote sensing monitoring equipment first to be able to use your model. And anyone, Omer?
Maybe I can relate to that. Some of the data that Amir present are coming from global models. Some of them are actually the specific, some of the radar data. Radar data is a specific device, usually owned by government, that cover each country and can give a very high resolution of rain intensity. This type of data is using for this kind of model. In addition to that, there are a lot of data that coming from what we call land monitoring station, meteorological station. But this is something that have to be considered when government planned to utilize water resources. There is supposed to be some infrastructure for local data together to monitor, to report the data in a good manner. Another point that just shortly I want to make for the previous thing about the private sector. The private sector is highly involved in Israel in the water resources, mainly in the supply side. A lot of the desalination plant that now supply most of the water for domestic use in Israel in amount of 750 million cubic meter a year are coming from a model we call BOT, build, operate, transfer. That means that private sector is design, is build and finance, and the government is control, regulate, and supply some kind of assurance to the private sector. But still, holding of the design and regulation are done by one national system. It's the Water Authority of Israel.
Thank you, Lior. Dr. Lior Asaf is going to be with us on the, you're going to be on the 24th next week. So if you have any more questions about the things that he had said, you will have an opportunity to pose those questions to him also next week. Okay, so there are some more comments.
1 minute, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Rejoin there, 1 minute. I think this is an eye-opener for the leaders of Mindanao. Under the leadership of Secretary Piñol, I think we have to sit down and see what we can do as far as water management is concerned. This is very timely for us leaders of Mindanao, and this is for the next generation to come. And I really appreciate the Israeli government for giving us the opportunity to share the good practices of Israel, and probably under the leadership of Secretary Piñol, we can sit down and formulate policies and guidelines for the water management in Mindanao. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Thank you, Governor. This is really what we hope is going to be the outcome of this webinar. Okay.
Point very briefly. I just would like to follow up on the statement of Governor Palma. Thank you very much, Governor. In fact, while you were talking, I wanted to go back to that question, that very lengthy question raised by the lady from South Cotabato. And from that question, actually, it came into my mind that I believe that we in Mindanao, Governor Palma, Governor Katamko, everybody, should look at engaging Israel in crafting our own weather and water data gathering specific to Mindanao area, because this is very important for the information of our Israeli friends. Mindanao actually supplies 46% of the total food requirements of the country. And we are actually the #1 exporter of bananas. The bananas all come from Mindanao. And we have the potential of increasing our productivity if we manage our water very well. So this early, I'm just sounding off Ambassador Ilan Floss. The Mindanao Development Authority might communicate with you, Your Excellency, and propose the idea of a technical cooperation between the Mindanao Development Authority and the Embassy of Israel in the Philippines and Mashav for the technical assistance in the crafting of a water and weather database gathering in Mindanao. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary. Just to respond that you're going to see, I think, in the coming few years, a big increase in Mashav activities in the Philippines, because I'm a great believer in technical cooperation. So I really look forward to meeting you when I arrive, and I'm totally open to your proposal. This is exactly my idea. So great minds think alike. So I'm looking forward to this cooperation.
Thank you. Okay, so another very important comment / question is from Evelyn Fantilanan from also South Cotabato. I think that's the First Lady, right, that has spoken. And she asks, how can we possibly imitate what Israel has been doing in its water sector? I know that the lectures were generally presented, but I guess it would be best if some strategies along the way can be shared. I fully understand that it needs a lot of stakeholder collaboration. However, I need to know how the local government units or local authorities in your country are strengthened in doing well in terms of water management. Other than a change of way of thinking, maybe we need more than looking at the current setup of Philippine government offices. Can you say that the Philippines should push for the establishment of its water authority and its board? Thank you.
I think it's pretty much the same question and it's the exact discussion that we had over here in the last couple of minutes. We are not naive. I'm not saying that the Israeli model is applicable in every country, in every region, in every state in the world. But the main concept of gathering forces and trying to gather all the relevant members and all the relevant bodies, all the relevant professionals in the same table is one that is relevant, because if you remember that one of the first slides in my presentation was the number of local authorities. Now, if I will make this the equivalent, okay, you had too many bodies, too many local authorities that were making decisions in a very narrow spectrum of thinking, okay, in their own local area for their own citizens. Therefore, we didn't have any unified way of seeing things toward a solution. Once we established and founded the Water Authority and the Water Authority Board, in Israel, yeah, things changed dramatically. I didn't show you. I can show you in the next presentation, maybe later in the other day of the webinar. But we can see changes in all spectrum of the water sector: non-revenue water, water effluent, water infrastructure investment, all across the board. So,
water contamination prevention.
Water contamination prevention. By the way, regarding the private sector, involving the private sector, as Lior said over here, in the desalination plants, in terms of BOT, build, operate, transfer. So yes, it had an impact. I'm not sure it is the exact model you need to operate in your country if you will need to make a change. But the basic idea is one: you have to be to get a decision from all aspects of the water sector, and not only water effluent, and not only infrastructure, and not only potable water, and not only agriculture. It's all together. It's a water sector. We have a crisis. We have to manage it.
Thank you, Omer. Okay, there are some more comments. James Doldolia says there was a proposed Department of Water Resource to consolidate all of these agencies, but it is still pending in Congress since 2018. And Karen writes that in the Philippines, there are some places that usage of water resources is still free. In Israel, you can use it in exchange of some amount. Do you think conservation of water resources is more effective in places paying to enjoy this resource than in countries availing it for free?
I didn't follow the question again.
Do you think that in some places water is free? Yeah. So do you think it's more the conservation of water resources is more effective in places where they are paying or where the water is free?
100%. When the people pay for services, they care about the services. Yes. And the issue is that in Israel, every drop of water is, let's say, precious. The property of the government. So you cannot use any source of water without the permission of the government. And this is one of the effective tools to control the water use. Because if you measure it, if you pay for it, if you manage it, you can control and to do sustainable development. If it's not controlled by anyone, so it just sometimes it's overexploited, and we don't see it only in Israel or in the Philippines, even in very developed market like the US, when they have the same mentality of the people that own the land, own the water rights. They have a lot of issue of exploits resources because it's not controlled and it's not managed.
Yes, thank you. I know that in a project I was running in Senegal, the farmers were previously used to not paying for water, and they could not understand why they should have to pay for a resource that is given by God. So it was very important to explain to them that they are not paying for the water, they are paying for the service of bringing them the water and for bringing them the clean water. So, so this is just a comment. Okay, there are some more comments.
Let me add yes? One sentence. I think we spoke only about water supply. We didn't speak about sewage collection and treatment. Mm-hmm. In Israel, it's part of the play. It's part of the responsibility of the corporations. Okay, so and it's part of the tariff. Okay, so it must be taken into account.
Yes, thank you. Okay, earlier when we were talking about what is water stress, then Emilian wrote, an area is experiencing water stress when annual water supplies drop below 1,700 cubic meters per person. And then James said, I think this is only for domestic water. Emilian said, hydrologists assess scarcity by looking at the population water equation. Okay, this is just to relate back to the other map we were looking at. And let's see, water supply. Okay, are there any other questions here? Can you elaborate more on the mandatory storage policy of Israel? Does it mean all residential houses have to own a water storage system?
The question is for me?
I think so, yes. You talked about water storage in general, yeah, so
but water conservation, but citizens has no water storage. That's the Water and Sewage Corporation function, exact function. He has to make sure by regulation that every consumer will have a 24/7 supply of drinking water to his home or his house, his asset, regardless. Okay, the Water and Sewage Corporation has to be prepared for every event, every normal event that we can foresee.
I want maybe to add one point for that. There is no obligation to have a storage on a personal property. However, by the new regulation of the Water Authority, each new building, a new house that is built in Israel, by law have to recharge the aquifer to event of 1 to 50 years. That means that all the rooftop water should be collected and be recharged back to the groundwater. So this is a new regulation. It's been enforced. And until a few months ago, I was in the private sector. So this is kind of projects that we did. So now every new facility, every new building, as part of the regulation, have to show that they have what we call sustainable water management code that imply for the regulation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're really out of time, but we're going to meet again next week, and we're going to continue the discussions, and we're going to continue the lectures and the information sharing. I would like just now, right before we end, to talk a little bit about a few points that maybe technicalities we can call them, that need to be discussed. So, as I stated in the acceptance letter that I sent, I tried to send to all of you. I hope you received it. We have opened a WhatsApp group, and we hope that you will please join it. This will facilitate the communication between all of us in between sessions and beyond what the sessions can cover. So if there are any messages or any kind of announcements, then it's easier to do it through the WhatsApp group. And so I had sent to you all a link, and I also put the link in the chat at the beginning of the session. So please, if you haven't yet, please join the WhatsApp group. Also, we will be opening a folder in the Microsoft Drive, and all of these sessions are recorded and they will be uploaded to the cloud, and the link will be made available to you either later today or tomorrow. So all of the information, all of these sessions, and all of the additional information that our lecturers will be providing to us, and that could be interesting, will be uploaded to that file on the cloud. And finally, just one point of information is, in order to qualify for a certificate, if you do want a certificate for participating, then you need to attend all of the sessions. And I just want to remind you that the attendance, we measure it using the link that you, or the registration that you used, and the entrance to the Zoom. Because I asked the Zoom application for a report of all of the attendees. So if you are sharing a computer or a link, and you have been here, please let me know. Write to me. You can write to me on the WhatsApp group or on the email, and let me know, because at the end of the 5 sessions, anyone who has been here for all 5 sessions is going to receive a certificate. If you do miss one session, or for any reason, let me know that you have missed the session, but that you are going to watch the recording of it, and then I will still make sure you get your certificate, even if you miss one of the sessions. Okay, so that's it for me, and I'm very, very happy and very honored that you are with us, and we are very much looking forward to seeing you next week. Something very important that I should not have forgotten from the beginning is a big, big thank you to my counterpart in Minda, Joan Berrera. Thank you so much. It is thanks to her that we got all of the lists of the participants ready right before the session began. And so thank you so much. And I very much enjoy working with you, and we're going to continue working like this throughout the webinar. So thank you to you and all of your staff.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, everybody.
So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Great.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Tommy.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you, everybody.